Tonight, journey to the far north, where the goddess Freyja's golden tears can change destinies. Settle in, and let the story begin. From the very first moment of morning, the north knew no peace. Icy winds chased each other across the endless white plains, sweeping up glittering waves of snow that danced above the frozen land. Somewhere in the depths of the ancient forests, ice cracked beneath the hooves of reindeer, the ground shivered under the paws of prowling wolves, and far above, through mist and clouds, the first green auroras of the polar night began to unfurl across the sky. Beyond the Arctic Circle, even silence had breath. It drifted like smoke through the trees, heavy with old names and forgotten dreams. Blizzards howled between the cliffs, changing one after another like restless spirits, while the stars shone so brightly that they seemed close enough to touch, like lanterns for wanderers on the edge of the world. In this land of eternal winter and unending battle between the elements, legends were born, strong as the northern wind, delicate as the frost glimmering in dawn's first light. High above this wild and restless world, perched as if upon the very pulse of the north, rose Asgard, the city of the gods. Its gates opened into eternal twilight, its towers rising like tongues of the aurora straight from the clouds. The gods of Asgard were both feared and revered, for it was they who watched from above, able to change the course of mortal destinies, to summon storms or grant hope with a single glance. In the ancient halls of Asgard, shadows of great names already lingered: wise, stern Odin, the all-seeing king, mighty Thor, whose hammer awakened thunder itself, and cunning Loki, always poised on the razor's edge between creation and chaos. But their true stories have yet to unfold. Tonight, all eyes are on Freyja. She entered the throne hall like the coming of dawn, and even the oldest gods fell silent, enchanted by the light in her gaze. Her footsteps were lighter than spring rain, her golden hair shimmered with every subtle color of the northern lights. Even nature itself seemed to pause, allowing a path for the goddess of love, beauty, and magic. Yet Freyja held a secret. Her joy could change to sorrow in a heartbeat. If a single tear slipped down her cheek, that tear, touching earth or water, would turn instantly to pure gold. People who found such tears believed them to be the greatest treasure of the north, but only Freyja knew that each one was born from pain, a silent longing for something even a goddess could not possess. Despite all her beauty, power, and riches, something was missing in Freyja's heart. Deep within, she searched for a spark, a feeling strong enough to warm her spirit even in the most bitter night. Often she would stand by her window, looking out over the snowbound world, dreaming of something that might make her feel truly alive, not just for others, but for herself. This was a world woven from magic and mystery, where the boundary between reality and dream was thin as ice. The wind whispered names of ancient heroes through the pine trees, the river hid forgotten wishes under its frozen surface, and in the darkness, wild foxes chased each other, their fur glowing in the aurora's emerald fire. Even the gods felt the touch of longing, for the north was a place where every soul, divine or mortal, knew the ache of desire and the wonder of things yet unseen. Tonight, the polar night seemed endless, the silence of Asgard unusually deep. Freyja, lost in her own thoughts, pressed her palm to the cold glass and watched the swirling aurora above. Did she long for love, for meaning, for something no magic could create? She could not say, but she knew the emptiness inside was real, as sharp as the wind outside her window. And so, in this long northern night, as the aurora shimmered and the ancient world held its breath, Freyja had no idea that destiny was about to test her in ways no goddess had ever known. Very soon, trials would come that would shape her heart and change the fate of gods and mortals alike. For now, the night kept its secrets. But just beyond the silence, the first note of a new tale was waiting to be heard, one that would carry the promise of adventure, loss, and the rebirth of hope beneath the sun beyond the northern circle. Sometimes, even the sun seems cold when sorrow settles in the heart. And so it was for Freyja. Despite the golden splendor of Asgard, the feasts and laughter, the shimmer of palaces and gardens, she felt a chill that nothing could warm. In quiet moments, as music faded from the halls and the lights of the gods burned low, Freyja would stand at her window and gaze into the endless northern night. Her breath misted the glass, her thoughts drifting far beyond the boundaries of the divine realm. There was a longing within her, sharp as the wind that carved the snowfields below. It was not the ache for gold or glory, nor the yearning for the adoration that always followed her steps. It was a deeper wish, a hope to find something more, something real and beautiful, a warmth that could reach her even in the deepest darkness. One twilight, as the aurora danced low over the rooftops of Asgard, Freyja made a quiet decision. She wrapped herself in a cloak the color of morning frost and slipped away from the palace. The night welcomed her with open arms, and she walked into the world beyond the gates, guided only by the silent music of her own heart. She wasn't running away, but walking towards something she couldn't yet name, drawn by the faint pulse of a longing older than the stars. Through the wide white fields she wandered, leaving footprints that shimmered briefly in the moonlight before the wind swept them away. She crossed silent forests, where the trees stood close and the snow muffled every sound, save for the far-off call of night birds echoing between the trunks. She paused at the banks of frozen rivers, watching how starlight glittered in the ice. At times, she traced old paths where once, in younger years, she and her sister had run barefoot through meadows, weaving garlands of wildflowers and laughing until tears filled their eyes. But now, the laughter was a memory, and her tears were no longer born of joy. Each one that fell sparkled gold upon the snow, a silent gift to the world and a sign of what she had lost. Unseen by human eyes, Freyja's presence left a trail of wonders behind her. Wherever she rested, a hollow in the snow beneath a silent pine, a mossy stone warmed by the glow of the aurora, she left behind tiny droplets of gold. In distant villages, people found these shining flecks on the riverbanks and among the reeds. They called them gifts from the stars, believing they brought luck and protection. Children gathered them in small wooden boxes, while elders whispered tales of the goddess who wept for the world. But none could know the true cost of these treasures, the loneliness and longing woven into every golden tear. As the days and nights of her wandering blurred together, Freyja found herself drifting further from the world she knew. Sometimes she would rest beneath the outstretched arms of an ancient tree and watch the sky, letting her thoughts wander through memories, of sunlight and laughter, of times when her heart was light and every song seemed meant just for her. Yet, always, the emptiness returned, a gentle ache, a reminder that she was searching for something she had never truly known. Her journey led her ever deeper into the wild places of the north. One evening, as the wind howled outside and the stars hid behind thick clouds, Freyja came to the mouth of an ancient cave. The opening yawned before her, dark and mysterious, and from its depths shone a strange, flickering light. It was not like sunlight, nor moonlight, nor the golden glow of her own tears. It was something entirely different, a pale, shifting radiance that seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. A thrill of curiosity and wonder stirred in Freyja's chest. What could this new light be? Was it a trick of the earth, or a promise left for her alone? She hesitated, then stepped forward, the gold of her hair glowing softly in the gloom. As she entered the cave, the cold seemed to fall away. Shadows danced along the walls, and somewhere far below, she heard the sound of water, gentle and persistent, as if whispering secrets lost to time. The strange light grew brighter with each step, drawing her deeper into the unknown. There, in the darkness, something magical was being born, something that might change the fate of even a goddess. Freyja's steps echoed as she descended into the heart of the earth, the entrance to the cavern yawning behind her like the mouth of some ancient beast. Beneath her boots, brittle ice cracked and glittered with every stride. The air was heavy, rich with the scent of iron, molten silver, and something older still, a heady blend of secrets and magic. The walls of the cave shimmered with veins of precious gems, emeralds and sapphires, garnets and pearls, all glinting with an inner light that seemed almost alive. It was as if the heart of the mountain had cracked open, revealing the treasures and mysteries hidden since the beginning of the world. Shadows shifted in the corners, and the silence was broken only by the distant ring of hammer on anvil, the hum of craft and creation. Freyja followed the glow deeper, until at last she entered a vast, vaulted chamber, a workshop unlike any she had seen, even in Asgard. Here, the very air shimmered with enchantment. Benches were piled high with gold and silver filigree, strings of pearls and uncut jewels, fires burned in ancient forges, their flames dancing blue and green, echoing the auroras far above. For dwarves worked side by side, each as unique as the treasures surrounding them. The first, Alfric, was broad-shouldered, his beard thick as winter moss, his hands as steady as stone. Beside him, Berling's sharp eyes glinted with cunning, every movement precise, as if he measured the world in gold dust. Dvalin, silent and stoic, shaped metal with a patient focus, his expression hidden behind a curtain of tangled hair. The last, Grer, was always smiling, nimble as a squirrel, his fingers moving so quickly they seemed to blur in the dim light. The dwarves paused as Freyja entered, but there was no fear in their gaze, only respect, mingled with a flicker of amusement. Even in this secret realm, the gods of Asgard were known, but Freyja's presence seemed to bring a gentle hush, as if the very stones recognized her longing. Her eyes were drawn, almost magnetically, to a single masterpiece lying atop a bed of crushed velvet. Amidst heaps of rubies, sapphires, and golden chains, one necklace outshone them all, the Brisingamen. Its light was different, not cold or distant, but warm, alive, as if it held a sliver of the spring sun within its links. Colors shimmered and shifted, catching the firelight and scattering rainbows onto the stone walls. No other adornment in the world could compare. Each link was a story wrought in gold, every gemstone a song woven from both joy and sorrow. Freyja's breath caught in her throat. She felt a yearning deep in her soul, a pull stronger than any she had known. This is what I have been seeking, she thought, her gaze softening, becoming distant and dreamlike. Not merely a treasure, but a charm that could shield my heart, a source of inspiration and warmth in the coldest night. The dwarves, quick and shrewd, exchanged glances. They saw the longing in Freyja's eyes and understood, the goddess of Asgard was willing to pay any price for such a wonder. Alfric spoke first, his voice a low rumble. You have the look of one who knows the true worth of beauty, Lady of the North. Brisingamen is not for the faint of heart. It is a treasure born from fire and longing, a masterpiece even among the works of dwarves. Berling leaned forward, his eyes narrowed in thought. It is not enough to wish for it, even for a goddess. Everything of value must be earned. Grer, ever grinning, added with a mischievous glint. But perhaps, if you are willing to meet our challenge, the Brisingamen could be yours. Freyja's heart fluttered. What must I do? She asked, her voice quiet but steady. The dwarves huddled together, whispering and sparking with anticipation. Their laughter echoed through the cavern, the sound rich with secrets and possibilities. At last, Dvalin raised his head, his eyes grave. There is a price, Freyja. A test, of courage, of heart, and of your true desire. Only if you succeed will Brisingamen belong to you. Freyja nodded, a tremor of hope mingling with fear. She had come seeking solace, but now stood at the threshold of a new ordeal. The storyteller's voice lingers, thick with intrigue. What would the master craftsman of the underworld demand from the goddess of Asgard? What price must she pay for her heart's desire? The answer, hidden in shadow and song, waits just beyond the firelight. The dwarves drew close together, their faces lit by the forge's shifting light. A hush settled over the workshop, heavy with secrets and anticipation. Freyja stood before them, proud, radiant, but uncertain. She sensed a test approaching, one unlike any she had ever faced. The eldest dwarf, Alfric, stepped forward, his voice solemn and low. Goddess, our creation is the only one of its kind. True beauty, he said, is never bought with gold alone, but with something far dearer. He looked to his brothers, and together, the four dwarves spoke as one. For the Brisingamen, this necklace spun from the threads of our longing and desire, we ask for one night each in your presence, not for possession, but for the chance to be close to one who walks with the beauty of dawn itself. Only then will you become its true keeper. The words hung in the air, both bold and vulnerable. Freyja's breath caught. She was unused to such demands, a goddess, accustomed to gifts and adoration, now faced with a price not measured in riches but in intimacy and trust. She felt a flicker of unease, a tremor of pride, and yet, something more. She gazed at the necklace, its light warm and alive, and wondered. Is this treasure worth opening my heart to strangers? Or perhaps this, too, is the path to a new experience, a way to learn what lies beyond power and beauty. The silence stretched, broken only by the hum of the forge and the soft drip of water in distant tunnels. Freyja, known for her wisdom and compassion, did not protest, nor did she scorn the dwarves' request. Instead, she saw their proposal for what it was, a challenge of fate, a test of her spirit. With a voice steady but gentle, she replied, "If you have truly placed a part of your soul in this creation, then I accept your terms. To touch real beauty, I must be willing to risk something of myself." And so began 4 nights in the dwarves' hidden hall, a time not of passion, but of discovery. The storyteller does not linger on details, for such things belong to silence and imagination. Instead, each night becomes a story of respect, of curiosity, of shared secrets and laughter that warmed the stone walls. On the first night, Freyja listened as Alfric spoke of the earth's hidden depths, of veins of gold and rivers of fire that run beneath the mountains. He taught her the songs of stone, and together they shaped small charms, singing quietly until dawn. The second night belonged to Berlin, who told tales of ancient wisdom, how the world was first formed, how dreams and fears dwell in every gemstone. He showed her the secret marks he carved in his work, the stories he left hidden for those patient enough to look. On the third night, Greer filled the workshop with laughter, teaching Freyja the wild dances of the underworld. They shared riddles and jokes, played at games of chance, and made music on goblets and hammers, echoing through the caverns. The final night was spent with Dvalin, the most reserved of all. He spoke softly of his hopes and dreams, of finding the unique within the ordinary. Together, they watched the forges burn low, and Freyja listened as he whispered wishes he had never told another soul. When morning came after the 4th night, the dwarves gathered once more. In a ceremony simple but filled with reverence, they placed the Brisingamen in Freyja's hands. She felt not just the thrill of holding such a marvel, but the warmth of new friendships, and the quiet certainty that she had learned something of herself along the way. With the necklace around her neck, Freyja was changed. Her step was lighter, her eyes brighter, not only because of the treasure, but because of the journey, the memories, and the courage it took to open her heart. The storyteller's voice softens, promising new wonders and unseen trials. Freyja returns to the world of the gods not only with a miraculous necklace, but with wisdom and experience she never expected. Yet even she cannot know what price fate may soon demand. Freyja's return to Asgard was nothing short of triumphant. She crossed the golden bridge with steady, graceful steps, the polar winds playing in her hair and the auroras flickering above like banners celebrating her journey. Around her neck, the Brisingamen shone with a life of its own, radiant with all the colors of the sun and the northern lights, a masterpiece impossible to ignore. From that day forth, the legend of Freyja's beauty grew. It was said that even among the gods, none could match her brilliance. Wherever she walked, hearts quickened, eyes followed, captivated by the living light that glimmered at her throat. In the halls of Asgard, whispers filled the air, voices both awed and envious. "Did you see her today? The Brisingamen, surely, no treasure in all the worlds is greater." The gods and goddesses gathered around her, their admiration mingling with curiosity. Some gazed in wonder, inspired by the splendor of the necklace and the new strength that seemed to surround Freyja like an invisible shield. But others, more cautious or ambitious, felt the prickle of jealousy or suspicion. How had she acquired such a marvel? What price had she paid to possess it? No one watched more keenly than Loki, the trickster god, master of whispers and secrets. His sharp eyes missed nothing, the faint shadow in Freyja's gaze, the quiet pride and the lingering echo of something hard-won. He knew, perhaps better than any, that behind every miracle there was always a hidden cost. As he circled the crowd, Loki's lips curled into a sly smile, his mind already weaving plans. The power of Brisingamen was not only in its beauty. The necklace amplified Freyja's gifts, making her magic richer and her presence more commanding than ever before. When she spoke, her words carried the weight of prophecy. When she sang, the very walls of Asgard seemed to shimmer. Even the land itself responded to her mood. When Freyja laughed, wildflowers burst into bloom in the meadows, painting the earth with color. If she wept, the skies darkened and golden rain fell in gentle showers, blessing the fields below. Yet for all her newfound power and the admiration that flooded Asgard, Freyja remained humble within. She cherished the Brisingamen not just as an ornament, but as a symbol, a reminder of the journey she had made, the friendships she had forged, the wisdom gained in darkness and light. She knew that every treasure carried a secret history, and that harmony could not be maintained by beauty alone. Can I truly keep this harmony, she wondered, if this treasure is so coveted by others? What is the true cost of desire, and can any heart bear it alone? As the celebrations wore on, the mood in Asgard shifted. Where there was awe, envy soon followed, where there was wonder, questions multiplied. Loki, lurking in the shadows, watched it all unfold. His eyes glinted with cunning, his thoughts as restless as a winter river. The goddess's treasure had not gone unnoticed, and in the world of gods, such things never remain untouched for long. The storyteller's voice falls to a whisper, stirring with promise and unease. There are always those who envy the happiness of others. Secrets and treasures seldom stay hidden among the gods, and soon, new challenges will rise from the shadows of desire. In the gleaming halls of Asgard, where every pillar reflected the ever-changing light of the aurora and the air was thick with the scent of honeyed mead and burning sage, there began to flow an invisible current, a restless, uncertain wind that wound its way through golden arches and silent gardens. Its name was Envy, and at its center stood Loki, the god of mischief, whose sharp mind never slept. Loki was a master of noticing what others missed, a hesitant glance, a tremor in a voice, a pause in laughter. For days now, he had watched the gentle glow of the Brisingamen at Freyja's throat, how the very air around her seemed to tremble with magic. Wherever she walked, faces turned to follow, smiles lingered a little longer, even the songs of the halls took on a brighter note. But behind all the celebration, Loki sensed a ripple, an imbalance, a secret waiting to be revealed. He found himself drawn to the edges of gatherings, listening as gods and goddesses whispered among themselves, sometimes in awe, sometimes in curiosity, and sometimes with a faint bite of something sharper. It was Loki who began to feed those hidden flames, never directly, but with a carefully placed word, a subtle question, a half-smile that hinted at more than it said. "Have you ever wondered," he asked Idun one golden morning, "where such a necklace might come from?" "I have wandered all 9 worlds and never seen its equal." Idun hesitated, fingering her own string of apples. "I suppose it's a gift from fate, or perhaps a reward for a goddess." Loki's eyes glittered, "Or a price paid, perhaps. Even the stars demand a price to shine. What did she give to wear a piece of the dawn?" He moved from god to god, Sif with her hair of gold, Tyr with his solemn strength, even Odin himself, who listened but gave no answer. Loki's suggestions sank deep into their hearts, and soon the admiration in Asgard was colored by suspicion. Some began to watch Freyja with eyes less warm than before, wondering what she had sacrificed, and whether a hidden danger now shadowed their halls. One evening, as the last light of the sun slid behind the edge of the world, Loki found Freyja in the gardens, surrounded by blooming night flowers that seemed to bend toward her as she passed. He bowed with elaborate grace, his smile polite and unreadable. "Oh, Freyja, the Brisingamen sparkles brighter than any star tonight. If I were a poet, I would spend a lifetime seeking words to match its beauty. But tell me, will you not share how you found such a wonder?" Freyja met his gaze, her eyes calm as the deep sea. "Not all stories are meant to be told, Loki. Some treasures are not found, but earned, and not for sharing with those who only wish to unravel them out of envy." Loki's laughter rang soft and silvery, but beneath it lay the promise of storm. "How mysterious you are, Lady of the Vanir. But secrets, like rivers, always find a way to the open sea." After Freyja left, Loki stood alone among the night flowers, his mind spinning. He felt no anger, only an exhilarating challenge. If the goddess would not give up her secret, he would uncover it himself. And if the Brisingamen could be his, why should he deny himself a prize won by cunning, rather than charm? That night, the atmosphere in Asgard shifted even further. The warmth of celebration faded, replaced by cautious glances and low, urgent voices in hidden corners. Some gods began to avoid Freyja, unsure whether her necklace was a blessing or a curse. Even the very air seemed tense, as if waiting for a distant thunder. Freyja, sensing the change, walked the silent halls and wondered if beauty and joy could ever last unchallenged among gods. Her thoughts grew restless. What use is harmony if suspicion blooms behind every smile? Can one ever possess anything in this world without risking its loss? The storyteller's voice lingers, filled with anticipation and foreboding. Among gods, even the purest light can cast the longest shadow. What Loki chooses next will set in motion events that will echo not only through Freyja's life, but through all of Asgard. The game of secrets has begun, and no one knows where it will end. Night had settled deep and silent over Asgard, wrapping the shining city in a stillness so profound it seemed as though even the stars hesitated to shine. The vast halls and high towers slept under the watchful gaze of the moon, and not a soul stirred in the shadowed corridors, except one. Loki moved like a whisper through the heart of the palace. His footsteps were softer than falling snow, his thoughts sharper than ever. There was excitement in his veins, a fire fed by risk, curiosity, and the thrill of what was to come. He knew that what he planned tonight would demand every ounce of cunning, every trick he had ever learned. In a world of gods, only the boldest would dare to steal from a goddess. He paused at the edge of a column of moonlight, his eyes darting left and right. With a murmured incantation, his form began to shift. He melted into shadow, slipping along the floor as a living wisp of darkness, unseen by the sleepy guards who watched the outer halls. A moment later, he became a small woodland cat, soft-footed and silent, moving between the guards with perfect grace. Then, a shimmer, and he was nothing more than a slender, glistening fly, buzzing unseen past the last door into the inner sanctum of Freyja. The air was heavy with dreams in her chambers, filled with the scent of wildflowers and snow. Freyja lay in peaceful sleep, her golden hair scattered like sunlight on her pillow. Next to her on a silver stand glowed the Brisingamen, its light dimmed to a gentle, living pulse. The necklace seemed almost to breathe, as if it was dreaming its own secret dreams. For a moment, Loki hesitated, awed by the beauty and power of the treasure. But ambition quickly overcame all. He crept closer, his touch as light as frost. As he reached for the necklace, he felt a shimmer of resistance, a whisper of magic woven into every link, an echo of Freyja's longing and the dwarves' ancient spells. That resistance only fueled his determination. With another spell, Loki whispered to the Brisingamen, coaxing it, charming it, urging the golden chain to loosen. The air trembled with silent tension. Then, slowly, impossibly, the necklace slipped from its resting place, sliding off the goddess's neck without so much as a murmur. Freyja slept on, undisturbed, lost in dreams of sunlight and laughter. For one heartbeat, Loki held his breath, expecting the room to erupt with light or fury. But nothing happened, only the soft, steady breathing of the sleeping goddess, and the gentle glow of the stolen necklace now in his hand. Slipping back the way he had come, Loki shifted shape once more, cat, shadow, fly, until at last he was just another whisper in the endless corridors of Asgard. His heart pounded in his chest, his fingers trembled around the prize. Every step was a gamble, every shadow a possible threat. Outside, the night still held Asgard in its frozen embrace. Not even the birds stirred, only the faintest tremor of magic lingered in the air, a warning that something had changed. The theft was complete, but its consequences were only beginning. The storyteller's voice lingers on a note of suspense. While the world of gods still sleeps, a single act has set fate in motion. No one knows yet what will follow in the wake of Loki's cunning, but the balance of Asgard has been forever altered. Morning broke slowly over Asgard, but the sunrise was muted, its gold dulled by a heaviness that seemed to settle on every roof and tower. The great city, usually so bright beneath the shifting northern lights, now felt subdued, its songs faded, its gardens still, and its very air tinged with the shadow of something lost. All across Asgard, the gods awoke to a strange unease. Some paused in their doorways, sensing the chill in the wind, the silence of the birds, the peculiar sadness that weighed down every heart. Even the sun's rays, climbing over the shining walls, seemed thin and pale, as if unsure whether they were welcome. In her private chamber, Freyja awoke with a shiver. The world felt emptier, her dreams dissolving into a vague ache as she reached instinctively for the comfort of Brisingamen. Her fingers found nothing but the bare skin of her throat. Instantly, her heart seized, a hollow pain radiated from the space where the necklace had rested, a gap not just in her adornment, but in her very soul. She sat up in bed, her breath catching. For a moment, she could not move, paralyzed by the sudden fracture in her spirit. Then her trembling hands searched the sheets, the stand by her pillow, the floor, each movement more frantic than the last. But Brisingamen was gone. A cry, raw and soft, broke from her lips. Tears welled in her eyes, tears as bright as the morning sun, yet heavy with loss and sorrow. As they spilled down her cheeks and dropped to the polished floor, they transformed at once into tiny specks of pure gold. The room filled with their quiet music, a sound both beautiful and unbearably sad. But the beauty was fleeting. With each tear that touched the ground, the palace seemed to exhale its sorrow, the walls faded like ancient fabric, the air turned heavy with memories, and the shadows stretched long, as if trying to escape the weight of her grief. Drawn by her sobs, other gods arrived at her door, Odin, wise and watchful, Thor, his brow furrowed with concern, Frigg and Sif, with eyes wide and voices gentle. They took in the scene at a glance, Freyja weeping, golden tears strewn about her feet, and a void where the Brisingamen's light once danced. "It's gone," Freyja whispered, her voice broken, and with it, a part of myself. This was no ordinary treasure, it was a wellspring of joy, a beacon for all of Asgard. A somber silence fell. The gods understood, this loss was not just Freyja's. The happiness that Brisingamen had brought was woven into every corner of their world. Now, its absence echoed through the halls, hollowing even the bravest hearts. Beyond the palace, Asgard itself felt the change. The flowers that usually bloomed at Freyja's laughter now bowed their heads, their petals growing dull and brittle. The skies darkened, streaked with heavy clouds that threatened rain but held it back. In the woodlands, leaves tumbled softly to the ground, and the rivers ran colder, their voices hushed. It was as if a spell had been cast across the realm, a subtle, aching emptiness that touched gods and nature alike. Even the animals grew quieter, their songs muted by an unspoken sorrow. The storyteller's voice grows quiet, almost fading to a whisper. The echo of loss would linger long in the golden halls of Asgard. The gods gathered together, hearts heavy, seeking answers. Who was to blame for this darkness? And what could be done to restore the light? In the hush that followed, hope and fear mingled in the air, as the fate of Freyja, and all of Asgard, hung in the balance. With the first cold rays of dawn, unrest swept through all of Asgard. The golden city, once so full of song and light, now echoed with the hush of worry and the muffled footsteps of its immortal inhabitants. Word of the theft spread quickly, and soon, from every corner of the realm, the gods gathered in the grand hall of the palace. It was a solemn assembly. From the oldest to the youngest, every god and goddess was present, their voices hushed and their faces drawn with concern. At the heart of the room stood Freyja, serene on the outside, but her eyes shone with confusion and pain. The Brisingamen's absence was a wound that all could feel, its missing glow casting a shadow on their spirits. Odin, the wise and watchful All-Father, presided over the gathering. His one eye was sharp as a winter hawk's, and when he spoke, his voice rang with the weight of ancient justice. "We must seek the truth," he declared, his words silencing even the youngest gods. "Speak your minds, each of you. We will not rest until the thief is found and balance restored." A murmur rose among the assembly as gods offered their thoughts. Some whispered of old enemies and jealous spirits, others guessed at spells gone wrong. Yet as the discussion turned, one theme repeated again and again: whoever had stolen Brisingamen must have wielded powerful magic and cunning far beyond that of mortals. Heimdall, the ever-vigilant watcher who could hear even the faintest whisper at the ends of the world, spoke next. "I sensed a trail of enchantment, a magic woven deep and swift, vanishing with the last shadows of night. It was a force both clever and elusive." The room grew colder. Suspicion began to settle like a frost. Slowly, the eyes of many turned toward Loki. The god of mischief sat apart, his posture relaxed but his gaze uneasy. Everyone knew his reputation for tricks, his love of secrets and chaos. Yet he met their glances with an expression carefully crafted to reveal nothing. Odin studied him in silence, his gaze a silent question. But the All-Father was wise, he would not leap to accusations, no matter how tempting the answer might be. As tension mounted, Freyja stood quietly in the center of it all. Her golden hair glimmered even in sorrow, but her shoulders drooped, and the traces of tears still shimmered at the corners of her eyes. She did not protest, nor did she plead for justice. Instead, she listened, her heart aching, but her dignity unbroken. Around her, the other gods grew restless. They knew this was more than a matter of stolen jewelry, it was a wound to the very heart of Asgard, a threat to the balance that kept their world alive. Every whispered question, every searching look, was weighed with urgency. If the truth was not found, the harmony of gods and mortals alike might unravel. The conversation sharpened. Voices rose, not in anger, but in desperation. Sharp questions flew across the hall, accusations barely veiled. Odin raised his hand for silence, but even his calm could not dispel the tension that clung to the air. At that moment it was not only Freyja's loss that pressed upon them, but a sense of something greater, a fear that their world, so bright and proud, might be more fragile than they had ever believed. The storyteller's voice draws close, full of quiet dread. As the gods pressed closer to the truth, the shadow of suspicion touched every heart. In the search for justice, no one would remain unchanged. And as the assembly trembled on the edge of revelation, all of Asgard waited for the verdict that would shape its fate. The tension in the great hall of Asgard had grown almost unbearable. Every face was drawn tight with suspicion, every whisper seemed louder than thunder. As the morning light slanted through high windows, the gods circled ever closer to the truth, examining every detail of the night's events, searching for a single thread that would unravel the mystery. Heimdall, ever the vigilant watcher, spoke again, his voice low but certain. "There was magic in the air last night," he said. "A thin trace, almost lost on the wind, a scent of transformation that I have known before." His eyes flickered to Loki, lingering just a moment too long. "It is a signature I would not forget." Odin, seated on his high throne, regarded Loki with growing sternness. The All-Father's gaze was steady, his questions direct. "Loki," he intoned, "your gifts are many, and your cunning is known to all. Will you explain where you were as the moon crossed the sky and Freyja's treasure vanished?" All around, the gods watched with mounting intensity. Some, remembering past mischiefs, tried to defend Loki, suggesting accidents, misunderstandings, or blaming other spirits. But doubt thickened in the hall, and even the friendliest voices wavered as the clues began to fit together. Loki, as ever, tried to deflect the questioning. He flashed a wry smile, his words twisting like smoke. "Oh, noble Odin, am I to blame for every spark of mischief? Perhaps the necklace wandered off on its own. Or perhaps it found a new admirer among the restless shadows of Asgard." His laughter was light, but the strain beneath it was clear. But Heimdall pressed on, recalling the faint glimmer he had seen in the darkest hour, a telltale shimmer only left by one who could change shape at will. "There are few among us with such magic," he said. "And only one who delights so much in disguises. Loki, the trace was yours." Now there was no doubt left. The gods, their suspicion hardened into certainty, turned as one toward Loki. The hall rang with voices demanding answers, demanding justice. One of the elder gods spoke out, voice ringing with authority, "Loki, the time for games is over. Return the Brisingamen. Speak the truth, and let the goddess's treasure, and Asgard's peace, be restored." For a moment, Loki still tried to wriggle free, offering clever bargains, promising favors, even suggesting a trade. "Would it not be better," he offered slyly, "if we let the necklace choose its rightful keeper? Or perhaps Asgard owes me a little reward for my entertainment." But the gods had lost all patience for riddles and tricks. Their voices grew louder, firmer, refusing to be led astray. The demand was simple and clear: restore what had been stolen, reveal the whole truth, and accept whatever justice the gods decreed. At last, Loki stood alone at the center of the hall. The silence stretched, heavy as the night that had brought his crime. All eyes fixed on him, not with hatred, but with a fierce hope, a hope that their world, fractured by deceit, could yet be made whole. The storyteller's voice falls to a hush, thick with anticipation. With the thief revealed and the final choice upon him, Asgard held its breath. Would harmony return? Or would Loki's pride and cunning bring still greater storms to the realm of the gods? For a long, tense moment, the great hall of Asgard was frozen in silence. The gods watched Loki, their faces a mixture of anger, disappointment, and hope. At last, the trickster god, defeated by the weight of so many eyes and the unyielding truth, let out a long sigh. His shoulders slumped, and with a reluctant gesture, he drew the Brisingamen from beneath his cloak and placed it in Freyja's waiting hands. A soft gasp rippled through the gathered gods. The necklace's return was not only the recovery of a precious treasure, but the rekindling of something deeper, an old trust, a sense of belonging, and the fragile hope that peace might be restored. As the Brisingamen returned to its rightful owner, the hall was filled with a gentle, golden light. Warmth returned to the air, banishing the chill of suspicion and sorrow that had lingered for days. The radiance of the necklace seemed to flow outwards, igniting every corner of the palace with renewed beauty. Flowers bloomed in the cracks of ancient stones, laughter rose again in the gardens, and even the air tasted of promise. But Odin, wise ruler of Asgard, knew that a simple act of returning the stolen necklace would not be enough to mend what had been broken. His voice rose, calm and commanding, reaching every heart. "Let us not forget," he said, "that harmony is not restored by possessions alone. Justice and balance must be renewed with every trial. Even the dearest treasures require sacrifice and wisdom." He turned to Freyja, his single eye gentle yet firm. "To truly bring peace to Asgard, you must offer a few golden tears, not from pain, but as a blessing for the land, a promise of abundance and hope for gods and mortals alike." Freyja listened and felt the truth of Odin's words deep within her soul. The Brisingamen, though precious, was not the heart of her power, compassion and forgiveness were. She nodded, accepting this task as both a privilege and a responsibility. She stepped onto the sunlit terrace, the Brisingamen shimmering at her throat. Lifting her face to the sky, Freyja let herself feel a deep, grateful emotion, not sorrow, but love for her world and all its people. Her tears fell softly to the earth below, each one turning instantly into golden drops that glistened in the morning sun. Where her tears touched the ground, flowers sprang up, brilliant and wild, filling the fields and gardens of Asgard with life. The river sparkled, birds broke into joyous song, and the very air was filled with a renewed sense of peace. All across the realm, mortals and gods alike felt the return of hope and harmony. The gods gathered around Freyja, smiling and relieved. The bitterness of loss was replaced by gratitude and unity. Even Loki, who now stood quietly at the edge of the crowd, felt a strange sense of peace settle in his heart, a lesson learned, if not fully understood. Freyja looked down at the Brisingamen and finally understood, true value is not found in jewels or treasures, but in forgiveness, support, and the willingness to begin anew. With a gentle smile, she joined her fellow gods, and together they celebrated the bright and fragile balance restored to their world. The storyteller's voice closes softly, full of contentment. And so, after sorrow and loss, a new peace blossomed in Asgard, a harmony built on courage, wisdom, and the quiet strength of the heart. After all the storms, heartbreaks, and lessons learned, Asgard found itself wrapped in a blanket of gentle peace. The sun's light was softer now, spilling gold across gardens that bloomed more brightly than ever before. Fields shimmered under waves of golden pollen, and rivers wound through the valleys, reflecting the iridescent glow of the sky above. Every leaf, every flower, every song of bird and ripple of water felt renewed, as if the world itself was whispering, "You have survived, and now you may rest." Freyja, at the heart of this new peace, wore the Brisingamen differently. No longer was it merely a mark of beauty or desire, now it glowed on her neck as a symbol of hard-won wisdom, a living story of love, pain, forgiveness, and hope. As she walked through the sun-drenched halls and gardens, gods and goddesses paused to watch her, feeling not envy, but a quiet awe. Freyja greeted them all with warmth, her smile deeper, her voice touched with the softness of one who truly understands both sorrow and joy. She shared the lessons of her journey not in lectures, but in simple, honest conversations, in the way she listened, in the kindness she showed, and in the golden light that seemed to follow her wherever she went. The young gods gathered at her feet to hear the tales of courage, of how tears could become blessings, of how true riches were found not in gold, but in the bonds forged through kindness and the strength to forgive. When Freyja stood in her garden, she often remembered the darker days, the longing that had sent her searching for meaning, the wild risks she had taken, the pain of betrayal, and the sweetness of reconciliation. Now she saw it clearly, every sorrow had carved light into her soul, and each loss had left behind a hidden root. Her golden tears, no longer grief's burden, seeped into the earth like ancient rain, and wherever they touched, blossoms flared like stars, wheat bent with golden promise, and a hush of hope stirred in every heart. Across Asgard, the world itself seemed to understand this new truth. The gods were kinder to each other, more patient and forgiving. Old quarrels faded, replaced by laughter and songs shared around long tables. Even Loki, watching from the edge of gatherings, felt something shift within himself, a strange peace, a silent promise that perhaps, even after chaos, healing could follow. The harmony that filled Asgard was not the easy calm of forgetting, but the deep, golden balance found only after weathering the hardest storms. Birds returned to sing in the orchards, children chased butterflies through wildflower meadows, the air shimmered with gratitude. From the highest tower to the quietest corner, everyone sensed that true wisdom had settled over their world, wisdom spun from tears, loss, forgiveness, and above all, love. As twilight fell, the north was wrapped in a gentle, endless night, painted with shifting veils of green and violet auroras. In every home, candles glowed softly, and even the gods allowed themselves to rest, hearts lighter and dreams sweeter. The storyteller's voice, warm and quiet, closes the tale. So ended the story of Brisingamen, a tale of beauty, trial, and golden wisdom. And though seasons would change and new challenges would come, the light and comfort of Freyja's heart would remain, guiding every soul through darkness into peace. For as long as this story is remembered, the world will always find hope, even in the longest night.